1978, networks were very small. I was raised on mathematical theories, so I was approaching this from a perspective of what happens when the network becomes very large. What techniques will be needed in order to control and manage it?
YY, as usual, suggested a unique angle of that.
The mechanisms to understand such complex systems, large scale, are provided by economics.
Yehiam always had this ideas which never never occurred to anybody else.
You don't try to optimize any one of them. You try to reach some equilibrium where everybody gets something good and nobody can improve their performance without harming somebody else. Now, why is economic technique different? Because when a system scales up and becomes very large, there's no longer sense in which one objective can guide you to its design. It's usually not a method of optimization. It's a matter of trade-offs, selecting the trade-offs.
I think the initial thought was, okay, there is this new area of virtualization, and we see a lot of kind of siloed products, that they're trying to solve individual problems. They were really different algorithms trying to make decisions that could be conflicting with each other. So I think YY's big idea was to say, maybe it's time to develop a platform where you think about all these problems using the same abstractions.
I thought the methods that were developed at the time focus on the microscopic details. To me, what was fascinating about systems when they were large and complex, you could no longer understand or interpret them. If you could see all the atoms in a gas, you would have no idea what the gas is doing. You would have too much visibility into the details that are insignificant. The concept of pressure as a metric of behavior does not exist for a single molecule. There is no pressure or temperature of a single molecule. It's only for many, many of them.
We realized that if virtualization continues to grow, it will become the mainstream. The level of complexity and the level of dynamics will become so big that traditional ways won't be able to handle it. So that was the first time we said, this is it. The real reason that I started VM Turbo is to prove to the world that I'm right. There is no other reason. I mean, yes, we want to make money. We all want to make money. We shouldn't hide that. But really, why I started VM Turbo is I was so convinced that software can do better job in managing IT than people. Yet I'm dealing with 20 years of people that are pushing back on that. And when you believe that software can do things better than the people, and the people that you are trying to sell them don't believe that can be done, then it creates a motivation inside to prove that you are right. We actually started talking to each other in end of 2006. Shmuel, Danila, Shai, and I started looking around and say, okay, we were thirsty for something new. What I took from YY was one sentence, which is applying economic principles to manage IT resources.
Well, I always thought it's a very good framework to formulate resource management and performance problems, better than traditional techniques.
The market solves a very, very complex equation that there is no other way to solve. I can use that to prove that I'm right. And that's why I really started VM Turbo.
We had Shai in Israel. We had Shmuel and I here nearby. Yuri in California. And YY at the time was in New Jersey.
When I learned and I came across virtualization and I understand kind of the fundamentals of virtualization, I came with the idea of how this economic engine can actually work. Because this is not exactly, to be fair to us, it's not exactly what YY had in mind. It's a little bit different. But when Danilo and I sat here and we figured out how this is going to work. What attracted me to that was the pure elegancy of that. That's it. Some way to kind of simplify to this elegant system and engine that just, you know, someone buys, someone sell, and yes, and it's magically happens. I knew that it's worth pursuing and it's worth pushing and go to the effort of doing it.
It was early summer, it was May of 2008, right? I think the first draft of the paper we had in June of 2008.
Shmuel and I were obviously working together every day here in this house. Shai was mainly working what we call the mediation. Shmuel and I were working on the market algorithm itself. Yuri was doing the user interface.
I set up the first VM Turbo lab in my garage. It's in the house we're like sitting right now. Right? We used this lab in my garage for slightly over a year. My neighbors asked me, Yuri, what's this noise going out of your garage? Well, I have a startup, and that's how we do development. We have a real startup in the garage, and they were proud of it. They started telling neighbors around me, we actually have a real startup in Yuri's garage. It was a little noisy. This is where we started really implementing everything from discovering, getting the data, and issuing controls. We're actually moving VMs around in our farm. The performance in such slow environment was horrible, and we managed actually to prove the point that the VMs consuming this not enough supply and do something to accommodate this lack of supply.
One of the milestones for me was working with HD Supply, which was a prospect.
It's like a logistic company in Atlanta. There was a guy, Brad, I remember, who actually liked our idea. Brad, why don't we make it useful for you? Yeah, he was very open to that.
They open up a connection to their environment and allow us to try different things and try the algorithm and see things happening.
We were effectively watching how the load could converge to the fewer number of servers.
And we started to see, actually we shaped a lot of the algorithm working with them.
We looked at that and said, that's indeed really useful. We actually made the first sale to HD Supply. They were our first customers.
Danilo and I sat here and figured out how this will work. And I remember the first time that it was so obvious that it is going to work. It's so clean and it's so pure.
So I first met Shmuel back in his days at Smarts. I remember being very impressed by Shmuel and saying, boy, there's a guy I want to stay in touch with.
He came down here and says, find an idea or start something in the area of IT operation, IT management, IT enterprise, and I'll fund it. So I really didn't think that I want to serve that market.
But they were working at the time on an idea to serve radiologists. There was a shortage of radiologists in the world.
If I would have been able to raise money for radiologists, I would have taken that route.
About a month later, Shmuel called me up and he said, I just met my first radiologist, and what's your idea in IT? And
then I came back to virtualization, and he was ready to fund it. And the day I went to Ben was the day after Labor Day, after the Lehman collapse.
if you think about February of '09, when we actually funded the company, we were losing about a bank a week. But with that said, it was probably one of the greatest times to fund a company, as long as you had the right entrepreneurial team. Some of the greatest companies come out of the most challenging macroeconomic environments. VM Turbo was very fortunate and birthed at that time, February of 2009.
The starting point for VM Turbo is not to identifying what the failures are, but identifying what are the actions that needs to take place in order to keep the environment healthy. And those are two different starting points. And because of that different starting points, I believe VM Turbo will succeed in doing something that smarts failed to accomplish. The fundamental question is, okay, I have a demand for something and I have supply that needs to satisfy that demand. That equation of this n-dimension trade-offs that needs to take place in order to satisfy that demand, whether it's on-prem, off-prem, whether it's container of this type or container of that type, whether it's this CPU and memory or this or the name changed, the artifact changed, but the fundamental questions doesn't change. So there will always be a need for that, and we have a platform to provide the answer. So how far it can go, it's up to us. You know, it's up to how much do we want, you know. That collects some data. Are you recording me?
It's already young. So.
They don't pay you enough.
That is true.
Did I just put that on film?
You did.
Way back when in the Soviet Union, there were like a lot of military industries. And some of these military enterprises tried to produce something for the rest of the crowd. But something was not right. It was like, what happens? You know, it's funny things. Everything we do will end up producing AK-47. So that's what happens to us. Everything we do, we always find the complex enough task to solve, find the proper level of abstraction, and solve it.